Introduction. From theory to real-world brokerage operations. In the previous sections of this chapter, you focused on what brokerage is and how the broker-salesperson relationship functions inside the firm. Now you shift to the day-to-day reality of operating a real estate brokerage in a competitive marketplace. This section pulls together practical skills you use every day: obtaining listings, pricing property, delivering powerful listing presentations, marketing listings, managing offers and pre-closing activities, safeguarding trust funds, managing information, complying with advertising and communication laws, and avoiding antitrust violations. In other words, this is where abstract brokerage becomes a living, breathing business that must be profitable, compliant, and client-focused at the same time. Obtaining listings, the engine of brokerage income. Listings are the traditional and most reliable source of a broker's income. When a broker secures a listing, that brokerage controls the opportunity to earn a commission whenever a cooperating broker procures a buyer and a successful closing occurs. Working with buyers can certainly be rewarding, but unless there is a solid exclusive buyer representation agreement in place, buyers can drift from one agent to another without commitment. An agent can show homes for weeks and earn nothing. A signed listing, however, is a clear, written employment agreement that ties the seller to the brokerage and gives everyone a realistic chance of being paid when the property sells. To obtain listings, an agent must consistently work a process. New agents typically farm a small geographic area, build name recognition, and look for opportunities when owners are ready to sell. More experienced agents can often rely more heavily on referrals from past clients and their sphere of influence, but they still must keep prospecting. Every step in the listing process, from first contact to signed agreement, demands skill: prospecting, scheduling appointments, researching the market, preparing a pricing strategy, delivering the presentation, handling objections, and securing signatures. Today's brokerages also face competition from discount brokerages, flat fee, list-only firms, and no-hassle, instant offer companies that purchase directly from sellers. These models focus on speed and volume, but often reduce the net proceeds a seller could receive on the open market with a full-service agent. A seller might receive a quick offer, but they frequently pay for that convenience through a lower price, repair costs, and additional fees. In this environment, a full-service agent must be prepared to clearly demonstrate value, market knowledge, negotiation skill, contract expertise, risk management, and personalized service that a call center or algorithm cannot replicate. Prospecting, feeding the listing pipeline. Prospecting is any business-building activity designed to find potential sellers or landlords who have not yet committed to a broker. Without prospecting, the listing pipeline eventually runs dry. Effective prospecting can include newsletters and mailers, neighborhood door knocking, social media content, open houses, community events, phone calls within legal limits, email campaigns, and simply staying visible and involved in your community. The goal is always the same: reach potential sellers, make them aware of your services and your brokerage's strengths, and secure permission to discuss their plans in more detail, ideally at a formal listing appointment. In today's market, having a consistent online presence is crucial. However, referrals from people who know, like, and trust you can still be one of the most powerful sources of new listings. Strong agents typically combine both: a visible online brand plus a deep, well-nurtured sphere of influence. Pricing. Balancing seller expectations and market reality. A key part of winning any listing is helping the seller set a realistic price. Overpricing can cause the home to sit on the market and help sell the competition instead. Underpricing may deprive the seller of value. The agent's role is to provide a carefully researched price range, usually based on a comparative market analysis, CMA, using recently sold comparable properties, current competition,
and market trends. By adjusting for differences in size, condition, features, and location, the agent arrives at a recommended price band while reminding the seller that this is a professional opinion, not a formal appraisal.
Agents should clearly explain that they are not appraisers and that a formal appraiser's opinion may be required for a precise valuation. It remains the seller's decision to choose the final list price, but that decision should be informed by solid data, photographs of comparable properties, and current market conditions. Sellers may be emotionally attached to certain improvements or convinced their home is worth more than the market supports. Upgrades, like a custom bright orange carpet, may be meaningful to them, but not to buyers. Sometimes conversion projects, such as turning a garage into a family room, can even decrease market appeal. A good strategy is to review recent sales and active listings with photos and features. Then ask the seller, now that you've seen your neighbors' homes and the prices they sold for, how would you rate your home by comparison? This invites the seller to reassess their assumptions. You might also ask, if you were the buyer, would you pay this price? On the buyer's side, you must educate your buyers about comps. Explain whether the list price appears above, below, or near market value, and prepare them for competitive bidding when a home is intentionally priced low to attract multiple offers. The listing presentation and negotiation of the agreement. The listing presentation is your live opportunity to show a seller who you are, what you do, and why your marketing plan and negotiation skills are worth the fee you charge. At the same time, it is your chance to explain the steps of the transaction, the timelines, the inspection and appraisal process, and how the listing agreement protects both the seller and the brokerage. The ultimate goal is to walk away with a signed listing agreement that the broker can approve and execute. A professional listing presentation is not just a slideshow of pretty pictures. It is an organized conversation built around good questions and active listening. Before the appointment, a phone consultation can uncover motivation, timing, loan and refinance history, expectations about price, and contingency plans if the home does not sell as quickly as expected. Many agents choose to preview the home before giving a price opinion, so they can see condition, layout, upgrades, and neighborhood details in person. They bring comparables on paper or laptop to demonstrate how the market is behaving. Experienced instructors and top producers recommend several practical listing presentation tips. Have a concise, elevator speech that explains who you are and what value you bring in under a minute. Send a pre-listing package with your background, testimonials, team information, and marketing samples. Preview nearby active and pending listings to understand the competition. Know any new build communities in the area and their incentives. Treat the home respectfully as a guest. Build rapport by having the seller show off their favorite features. And be transparent and professional in appearance, language, and demeanor. It is also important to set realistic expectations. Discuss absorption rates in their price range, potential pricing strategies, how showings and feedback will work, and the plan if the home does not sell within a certain time. You are interviewing the seller just as much as they are interviewing you. If the seller's expectations are extreme or they are unwilling to follow legal and ethical guidelines, you may decide not to take the listing at all. Recognizing that a listing you can never sell is not an asset, it is a liability. Marketing listings, turning a listing into a sale. After the broker approves the listing agreement, the agent launches the marketing plan. Effective marketing is a coordinated set of activities designed to achieve maximum exposure and buyer interest with smart use of time and money. Professional photos are almost mandatory in today's market. Decluttering, depersonalizing, rearranging furniture, or full staging may be recommended to improve presentation. The agent prepares compelling remarks for the MLS, highlights upgrades and unique features, and ensures the home is show-ready for photography and showings. Beyond listing the property in the MLS, agents may host broker tours, open houses, and virtual tours. Use social media posts and targeted ads. Send email blasts to their database. And promote the listing through the brokerage's internal network and office meetings. Feedback from showings and other agents should be consistently shared with the seller. Constructive feedback about condition, pricing, and market response helps sellers adjust expectations and make necessary changes. When marketing generates interest, the agent's role becomes more personal. They must qualify buyer prospects, show properties that match their needs and financial capacity, elicit honest reactions, and report material feedback to the seller. Throughout this process, the agent must also make any legally required disclosures, such as agency relationship, known material defects, and potential environmental hazards. Obtaining offers and navigating pre-closing activities. When a buyer decides to move forward, the agent prepares or obtains the buyer's offer, including price, earnest money, financing terms, requested closing date, and contingencies. At this stage, the agent must be meticulous in observing their fiduciary duties. The agent may not reveal what price a client will or will not accept, or use confidential client information to benefit the other side. Instead, the agent helps the client evaluate offers, prepare counteroffers, and negotiate terms that align with the client's goals. The highest price is not always the best offer. A strong agent will prepare net sheets, review financing strength, contingency load, repair expectations, timelines, and lender reliability. They will speak with each lender to confirm pre-qualification details, rather than assuming written letters are accurate. Misstated facts about home sale contingencies, down payment sources, or employment can derail transactions if not investigated early. Once the buyer and seller reach a meeting of the minds and sign the contract, the property goes under contract. The period between contract and closing is the pre-closing or contingency period. During this time, the buyer arranges financing, performs inspections, and often must sell another property. The seller may be clearing title issues, completing agreed-upon repairs, and preparing to vacate. The agent's responsibilities include promptly delivering the fully executed contract and earnest money to the broker, tracking critical dates, helping coordinate inspections and appraisals, monitoring loan progress, and communicating with escrow and title to ensure all documentation is complete. Agents must pay attention to contract timelines, delivery of the closing disclosure, CD, timely loan approval, appraisal completion, inspection response deadlines, and document delivery to title, often at least 3 days prior to closing. They must remind sellers to maintain property insurance and keep utilities on through recording. Thorough, proactive communication is the key to avoiding last-minute crises. Broker responsibilities, trust accounts, commingling, and conversion. While agents handle much of the transactional work, the listing broker carries primary responsibility for earnest money deposits, the trust account, and overall compliance with state law. Earnest money and other trust funds must be deposited into accounts separate from the brokerage's general operating account and must be handled using accepted accounting procedures. Two serious violations in this area are commingling and conversion. Commingling is the act of mixing the broker's personal or business funds with escrow funds, or failing to deposit trust funds into an appropriate account promptly. Many states require deposit within a specified timeframe after receipt, such as 1 or 2 business days. Conversion is even more serious. Conversion occurs when a broker misappropriates escrow funds for personal or business use, essentially borrowing or stealing client money. Conversion is typically grounds for severe discipline, including license revocation and potential criminal charges. As a broker or future broker, maintaining strict trust account procedures and supervising agents' handling of funds are among your most critical responsibilities. Managing information, the hidden asset of a brokerage. A successful brokerage is built on information, property data, buyer and tenant profiles, client records, and market intelligence. The ability to organize, update, and retrieve this information quickly is one of the main reasons buyers and sellers seek out brokers instead of trying to operate alone. When you onboard a buyer or seller, you should also learn how they prefer to communicate and how often. Some clients prefer phone calls. Others live by text. Some want detailed weekly email updates. Clarifying this early builds trust and reduces frustration. Brokerages typically maintain several information categories. Property data includes MLS listings, for sale by owner properties, tax records, and in commercial firms, proprietary databases of available and occupied buildings. Buyer and tenant data consist of active prospects, their price ranges, property needs, and timing. Client data includes both current and past clients, notes on their transactions, and future needs. Finally, market data tracks pricing trends, absorption, new construction, demographic shifts, financing terms, and macroeconomic conditions. Agents who know their market intimately, down to street-level differences, tend to dominate business in that area. Policy manuals and brokerage procedures. A well-run brokerage relies on a written policy and procedures manual. This document is the internal roadmap that sets expectations for supervision, file completion, advertising rules, trust account procedures, contract review, agency, and disclosure practices, training, and discipline. In Arizona, the Arizona Department of Real Estate, ADRE, even provides a model broker's policy and procedures manual to help brokers build compliance systems. A strong policy manual supports consistent decision-making, fair treatment of agents, and clear guidance when unusual situations arise. It also provides evidence to regulators that the broker has taken supervision seriously, which can be crucial if complaints are filed. Advertising regulations and compliance. Advertising is a powerful tool for attracting buyers and sellers, but it is also heavily regulated. Under Arizona rules such as AACR 4-28-502 and similar regulations in other states, advertising must not be misleading and must clearly identify the employing broker's legal or DBA name in a prominent way. Salespersons cannot run blind ads that hide the fact that a licensee is involved, nor can they advertise solely in their personal name without the brokerage identification, except in very narrow circumstances when selling their own property outside the brokerage's channels. Licensees advertising their own properties must disclose their status as owner/agent. In the advertisement, all claims and representations must be accurate and not create a false or misleading impression. Signs may only be placed with the written consent of the owner and must be promptly removed when the owner requests or the listing ends. Online advertising, including websites and social media pages, is treated the same as traditional print advertising and must comply with all the same rules. When a property is under another broker's employment agreement, any advertising must clearly display the listing broker's name. Telephone Consumer Protection Act, TCPA, and CAN spam. Modern prospecting frequently involves phone calls, text messages, and email, which brings federal law into play. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act, TCPA, regulates unsolicited telemarketing calls. It prohibits calling numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry unless an established business relationship exists or another narrow exception applies. This affects calls to FSBO sellers and expired listings. If the owner's number is on the Do Not Call list and there is no established business relationship, calling to solicit a listing is generally prohibited. Telemarketers must identify themselves, their company, and provide contact information. If a consumer asks not to be called again, you must honor that request. Robocalls and pre-recorded telemarketing messages are heavily restricted and generally require written consent. The CAN Spam Act applies to commercial email messages. It bans sending unwanted commercial messages to certain wireless devices without prior authorization and requires that recipients be given a clear, functioning opt-out option. Real estate practitioners who send marketing emails must include accurate header information, a truthful subject line, identification that the message is an advertisement where required, a valid physical postal address, and a working unsubscribe mechanism. Respecting both TCPA and CAN spam is essential risk management and part of operating a professional brokerage. Antitrust laws and brokerage practice. Real estate brokerages must also comply with federal antitrust laws designed to preserve free and open competition. The Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits conspiracies that restrain trade, monopolistic practices, and certain anti-competitive mergers. The Clayton Antitrust Act expands these protections and addresses practices such as certain exclusive contracts and predatory price cutting. The Federal Trade Commission Act empowers the FTC to pursue unfair methods of competition, and in real estate, several specific behaviors can cause antitrust problems. Collusion occurs when two or more brokerages coordinate to gain an unfair advantage, such as agreeing not to compete in certain neighborhoods or to exclude a particular competitor. Price fixing happens when competing brokers agree to charge certain commission rates or fees instead of independently setting their own. For example, if the two largest firms in a town agree that everyone will charge exactly 6% and no one will discount, that is price fixing and a serious antitrust violation. Market allocation occurs when competitors agree to divide markets by geography, price range, or property type, instead of competing freely. For instance, Broker A agrees to take only single-family resales, while Broker B handles all condo and apartment sales, and they agree not to cross into each other's segment. Tie-in arrangements are another violation, where a party is required to accept one service as a condition of receiving another. An example would be a broker refusing to sell a parcel of land to a builder unless the builder agrees to list all finished homes exclusively with that same broker. Antitrust penalties can be severe. Hefty fines, treble damages in private civil suits, and even prison terms for intentional violations. Brokers and agents must avoid any conversations with competitors that even appear to set standard commission rates, divide territories, or manipulate competition. Commission rates and business policies must be determined independently within each firm. Review summary. In this section, you learned what it really takes to operate a brokerage in practice. Listings are the primary fuel that powers income, and prospecting is the ongoing activity that keeps listings coming. You saw how critical it is to price property realistically, educate both sellers and buyers, and use data and photos to guide expectations. You explored the anatomy of a compelling listing presentation and learned practical tips, from pre-listing packages to neighborhood research, that help you win the listing and set clear expectations. You also followed the life of a listing from marketing to offers to pre-closing. You saw how the agent's responsibilities evolve from promotion to negotiation to coordination, and how the broker's responsibilities, especially regarding trust funds, commingling, and conversion, sit at the center of compliance. You explored how information management, property, buyer, tenant, client, and market data is a competitive advantage, and how a strong policy manual supports supervision and consistency. Finally, you learned the regulatory framework around advertising, telemarketing, commercial emails, and antitrust. You saw how ADRE rules, TCPA, CANSPAM, and federal antitrust laws all shape how a brokerage must behave to remain ethical, lawful, and trusted. Discussion with answers. Why are listings considered more reliable sources of income than working only with buyers? Answer: because a signed listing is a written employment agreement that ties the seller to the brokerage and creates a clear path to compensation when the property sells. Working with buyers without an exclusive agreement can result in significant unpaid time if the buyer purchases through another agent. How can an agent handle a seller who insists on a list price well above current market data? Answer: the agent can present recent comparable sales and active competition with photos, ask the seller to compare their home objectively, and ask whether they themselves would pay the price they want. If expectations remain unrealistic, the agent must decide whether to take the listing at all or decline the listing to avoid an unsellable, overpriced property. Why is managing information, property data, buyer data, market trends such a powerful competitive advantage for a brokerage? Answer: because buyers and sellers rely on brokers for accurate, up-to-date information to make decisions. A brokerage that maintains organized, current data can price better, market more effectively, answer questions quickly, and anticipate market shifts, all of which gives it a reputation as the local expert. What common behaviors might accidentally drift into antitrust trouble for real estate professionals? Answer: talking with competitors about standard commission rates, agreeing not to compete in certain neighborhoods or price ranges, promising to send business to each other in a way that divides the market, or making listing or sale agreements conditional on using another product or service. Tie-ins. Closing remarks. Operating a real estate brokerage is much more than hanging a license and collecting commissions. It is a complex blend of leadership, systems, compliance, marketing, and relationship building. As you move deeper into brokerage topics, remember that every practical skill you develop, presentations, pricing, negotiations, supervision, advertising, and information management, sits on top of a legal and ethical foundation. When you master both the practical and the regulatory sides of operating a brokerage, you not only protect your license and your clients, you also position yourself to build a sustainable, respected business in any market.